Well, here we are. We're live.
Hello.
Myself, Troy Francis, and Jack Napier. How are you guys doing? And how are you doing, Jack?
I really can't complain. Can't complain. Looking forward to today, where I have finally come full circle to talk about this grandiose book again.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Looking very smart in the jacket.
I know. It's very 90s, like wearing the. Well, now my camera has died. Come on. There we go. Technical difficulties.
Look at that beaver. What is that? Is
Yeah.
that a beaver?
No, that's
An otter.
It's a hippo. What is wrong? Looks like your camera was. Give me one moment. Apologies, guys. This is pure professionalism right here.
Technical problems. This is what you guys come here for. This is what you guys want.
Luckily, I have a voice for radio. So
world-class broadcasting.
There we go.
Broadcasting skills. There we go.
Yeah.
Awesome
what I was about to say, it's very 90s, like wearing the turtleneck with the long sleeves under the blazer. But I'm getting back in touch with my Nirvana days, like combined with what I am now. Like, oh my God, Nirvana is like, people actually believe Cobain did not kill himself. I'm like, go listen to the music. Just listen to it. It will explain itself. That man had issues.
Yeah, he wasn't a very happy guy. He wasn't a very happy guy, let's be honest.
No, he really wasn't. But how have you been? How was your week?
How was it? It's been all right. I'm in London. It's pretty damn cold, as you would expect. I've been suffering from the seasonal blues a little bit because, having been in Mexico and stuff earlier in the year and then coming back here, not the best. But I've had some stuff to do here, which I've been cracking on with, which has been pretty good, actually. So there's some good stuff happening, but it's just getting through the winter. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly
cracking on with all of that, really.
Mm-hmm. I don't believe in seasonal affective disorder. I just think it's the way of the world. Like, humans just react like that to cold and bleakness outside.
Well, I don't know that it's I don't think it's something you have to go to the doctors about, put it that way. But I think it's I know that I definitely feel somewhat better when I'm in hot weather. When it's hot and sunny and it looks sunshine and nice. I do tend to feel better. Having said that, I can be pretty morose anywhere, to be fair. It's not like I go to Mexico and I'm like, woo, and start partying. I mean, I'm still miserable there. I'm just sort of there's just degrees of the misery.
It's just a tad less, It's like when I listen to The Cure, it's like I could actually enjoy the music instead of feeling sad now.
Exactly. There's just a sort of there's just a different quality of the sort of morose doomer vibe. I listen to a bit of Morrissey, but I'll just feel a bit better when I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a kind of a turn up for the books, isn't it? Because after the world-class success of our going through The Art of Seduction a couple of years ago, it's a little while ago now, isn't it?
It has been.
We're now embarking on the journey of going through and analyzing the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene, which is quite exciting, isn't it?
It is, actually. Like, how did you get to know about the book?
Do you know what? Because you mentioned this before, I can't really even remember. I know that's a bit lame, but I genuinely can't remember. I don't know if it was just because it was obviously a massive bestseller and a lot of people were talking about it, or I can't remember, or if it was through reading some of the Red Pill stuff, maybe. People were recommending it. I can't really remember, but the only thing I would say is that I think it would always have appealed to me because the basic idea of Machiavellianism has always fascinated me, I think. So wherever I first heard about it or first read about it, I think it would have immediately sort of ticked that box for me. And I would then have had to seek it out because it's like all the things that he talks about. And Greene is actually one of my favorite writers, or one of my favorite modern non-fiction writers, let's say. And it's because his worldview, the way that he looks at everything, is very much in sync with my own. And actually, obviously, I've been educated by him as well. The way that he looks at things, and we'll talk about the intro, obviously, as we get into this, but, the necessity to appreciate that the world isn't fair, that people act in underhand ways, and that if you're not going to get completely trounced, then you're going to have to do the same, I think is accurate. And it really reflects what I think about life as well. So I think as soon as I saw anything about it, probably online or whatever, I immediately had to make a beeline for the book. But can you remember how you found it originally?
Oh yeah, I remember that very vehemently. So back in the day when one of my friends got dumped and he showed me
Yeah,
Corey Wayne and Elliot Hulse and guys like that, somewhere around the line there, I stumbled upon the Red Pill Reddit and I kind
yeah,
of discarded it where it's like, oh no, this is too much. This is too
mm,
much. But
yeah,
every now and then I peaked. Every now and then I peaked because when you start like watching the Corey Wayne videos, you get RSD. And I watched a couple of RSD videos. And back then I was going back and forth with a girl I was really into. And I remember um, Owen
mm,
saying, like, you really think a girl goes to the bar and goes home and playing with her Duracell bunny? Of
mm,
course not. She's under the bar having fun with the bartender.
mm,
And I
mm,
remember that even though it sounds absolutely crass, it resonated with me. It's like, yeah, of course, like a hot chick, of course she's gonna get it on with the bartender and things like that. So that whole red pill Reddit thing is like, maybe I've discarded it too soon. Maybe I've discarded
mm,
it too soon. And then I
yes,
saw the sidebar, and there was 48 Laws of Power, and there was an entire description, a post called the 48 Days of Power. But
mm,
on the Red Pill Reddit, it was presented as this like Machiavellian Bible, and when you
yeah,
read this, you will become evil incarnate. So I took it very slowly, where it's like, I don't know if I want to read this. I just knew as soon as I would read that my worldview would change forever. Because back then I was like, no, no, no. If I behave and be a productive little worker, people will appreciate me for the value I bring.
mm, yes,
And that did not turn out to be true. So at a certain point, I remember watching an Elliot Hulse video, and he even said, like, just go read everything Robert Greene. And I was like, well, the man's helped me thus far. He's probably right
yeah,
about this as well. And I started reading it, and I remember my worldview just shattering of like, oh shit. It
wow,
really doesn't matter how well you do things at work. It really is about who likes you. And
yeah,
here I was, like years of working in gyms, but losing the job, even though the clients love me. Because
mm,
looking back on it, I had like gym owners who just wanted yes men. They all
mm,
wanted yes
mm,
men. I remember a situation even where the gym owner was doing ab crunches and
yeah,
he's like, "Oh, I want to lose belly fat." And I told him, "Well, your body fat is like a hole, and you can't spot reduce body fat."
mm,
So I went against him, and not a week later, it was, "Hey, Jack, we kind of figured out that you're not a good fit for the team." It's like, oh, even though I had like clients and things everywhere in that gym, and they were making results, whatever. They like me. They like hanging out with me, training with me. Nope. Well, you just don't fit the team that well. It's like,
mm,
oh, oh, just
yeah,
things like that happening. And I just realized more and more that I got into the 48 Laws of Power, where it's like, it doesn't matter if you're right. It really doesn't matter. When your boss says the sky is green, you have never seen greener. You've never seen green. Grass
yeah,
isn't even as green as the sky. Just tell him
yeah.
he's right.
Well, were you also, and this obviously the topic of today, really? I mean, were you sort of outshining the master a little bit there?
Actually, yes. Actually, yes, because there were further instances even where, and Robert Greene goes into this outshining the master. It doesn't have to be directly towards him, but it can
Yeah,
be in general, where you show your capacity or your knowledge, which indirectly makes them insecure, and they will find reasons to get rid of you because you make them realize that, oh, this guy actually does know what he's talking about. I don't feel comfortable with that because I want people to do what I want them to do.
yeah,
Better get rid of him. Like there's a story in he uses the story of the Italian prince, right? That
mm,
Italian bloke who was much prettier, or he was like way
yeah,
more handsome than the ruling caricature. I
yeah.
don't remember exactly.
Borgia comes in,
Yeah,
and yeah,
and he got him killed because he was better looking.
Yes.
People
Yeah.
are so petty. People are absolutely petty.
Well, the other example he uses is this guy Fouquet, who has a huge party in order to try to ingratiate himself to the king Louis. And do you remember this one? And Fouquet presents this amazing. He was like the sort of economic secretary or whatever of the court, and he felt that he was losing, or the financial minister or whatever. He felt that he was losing power in the court, so he had this fantastic, wonderful party in Paris, with a play by Moliere and all of this kind of very decadent, opulent stuff happening. You know, amazing food from the Orient that never been tasted in France, music, special music commissioned to honor the king, and so on. And the whole point of this big party was precisely that, to honor the king. It was meant to be like, oh, this is for you because I love you so much, and look at all of this. The next day, King Louis had Fouquet arrested by one of his musketeers, and he was sent to jail. And then a year later, he was sent to solitary confinement for 20 years or something, on some trumped-up charges. And the reason was because the king wanted to be known as the guy who threw the best parties, who had the best social connections and everything else. And this guy, inadvertently, even though he'd been trying to actually curry favor with the king, had sort of shown himself to be more entertaining and, more better connected and blah, blah, blah. So the king got rid of him for somebody else who was a lot more boring.
Mm-hmm. He made the king self, how do you phrase that?
Emoliate.
What's the word?
Self-aware.
Yes. He made the king self-aware about his own, lack of capacity in that to throw parties and to be this radiance of society. Well, and then what did the king do? Of course, he got rid of him.
Yeah, he got rid of him. And then after that, the king then went on to build the Palace of Versailles and throw even bigger, more grandiose parties afterwards. So it obviously needled him a little bit. He was the top G to kind of throw. Yeah. And this other guy came in and tried to be top G, and then he was like, "No, I'm top G, so I'm going to get rid of you." So again, it's that thing of, even if you've got to be careful with the way that you try to curry favor with your superiors in a hierarchy, in a social setting, because you could be doing it to try to get in their good favor, but actually, inadvertently, that could make them think, hang on a minute, this guy's a threat to me.
Mm-hmm. You must never make people insecure about their own capabilities. And that is one of the biggest transgressions in this entire book, that you let...
It's like on Rule Zero, isn't it? When Rollo Tomasi's going off onto one of his big rants, you're not going to interrupt and be like, no, Rollo, actually, I think you're.
No.
Okay, man.
You just tell him he's right. Of course not. How dare we go against the Godfather? My God, man.
Exactly.
He's gonna watch this and be like, "You darn goddamn British people, with weird accents."
Yeah.
But funnily enough, like, Foucault made a decision based on emotion. Like, he was already fearful of the king not liking him enough. And even in the intro, Robert Greene speaks of this, where never ever let your emotions rule you. Never make any decision based on emotion, whether it's fear or anger or just sadness. It doesn't matter. Think of it in objective terms.
Yeah.
And that is something I really like about this book as well, is that, and I don't have the exact sentence right here, but he mentions that you can either take all the laws in here way too seriously, take everything literally, to like think this book will help you rule the world like some Machiavellian mastermind, or look at them objectively, situationally, do not take them literally but seriously, and you will find that most power is not in what you do, but what you don't do.
Right. Interesting. So you mean there's value in holding back sometimes in these situations?
Oh, absolutely. Like, what will it really gain you? What is there really to win? Yes. And I've described this book mostly as a shield for people who are actually truly Machiavellian. instead of the sword to use to become Machiavellian.
Well, yes, although you're saying that, and I mean, John Watts has very kindly put in this big disclaimer here or asked us to tell everyone that you shouldn't be using this to take over the world. You shouldn't be using this for bad things. It's a framework for understanding and blah, blah, blah. Well, we've got to say that because we're trying to be nice and politically correct and we're on YouTube and everything. But at the same time, what if you do want to take over the world? It's actually a pretty good template as well, isn't it?
It is. It is banned in prison for a reason.
And it is. And I mean, look, I think the thing that fascinates me about Greene and about Greene's work is that he is, well, I mean, actually, I'm saying this. I mean, fundamentally, he's amoral, I believe.
Yes.
Now, in the introduction, he does put a fig leaf over it and he kind of says, oh, you could use this to understand the world around you and make yourself, a better person and blah, blah, blah. But come on. I mean, look, if you want to be Trump, just take it and use it as a bloody handbook. Do you know what I mean? And the reality is that people who are, we've talked about this ad infinitum before, but people who are very successful, CEOs and captains of industry and even seducers as well, tend to be dark triad people who are amoral and who bend the rules in order to get the things that they want. However, and we're seeing this recently with some certain current events that are going on around the world, you've got to be careful because you can also overshoot your, and I'm sure he covers this later in the book. Perhaps you'll remind me, Jack, but you've also got to be careful because going too far with the Machiavellianism and the dark triad stuff can also get people to stomp on you and to try to push you back down again. So you can use these principles in order to advance yourself in the world, either in your career or in your corporation or maybe with dating or whatever. But you've also got to make sure that you don't take it that step too far. And then you get society coming back on you, Then you get the Matrix or whatever you want to call it is gonna smack back, and it's not gonna be pretty. So, and he covers that later on as well, doesn't he?
Law 47, where don't go past the mark you aim for.
Right. Okay.
I don't know why I know that. I do know why I know that, but don't call me out on it. But it is, and what he mentions in the introduction as well, where there is power in action. And funny, you read The Game by Neil Strauss, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
I have it tattooed on my back.
Really? The entire thing?
The entire text. I'll show you. No, not really.
I'm surprised it's not Mystery Method. But what was I about to say? There is power in inaction. And in The Game, there's an entire chapter where Neil Strauss even mentions that a lot of guys got 48 Laws of Power under their shoulder, just reading it. And I did a show on this book with Rollo Tomasi even as well, where I asked him, like, what is it about this book that makes it so popular in this space? But it's mostly that guys are ruled by their emotions, which reminded me of that post, which unfortunately I've never read, but I've heard a lot about that, where it's your emotions are bad and you should feel bad for having them. Now, our good friend from the convention that shall not be named is a very good example on this. Like him or hate him, this is just a case study. He could have just said nothing, went on his merry way, made his own content, run the convention, and everything would have been fine. He decided to go in an emotional tantrum, which he still hasn't quit.
Yes. I agree. But I suppose another way of looking at that, he probably thought that he was being quite Robert Greene and Machiavellian, because I would imagine part of his strategy was, I'm going to create spectacle. Right, I'm gonna, and we all know, and there are other people in this space who shan't be named, who do exactly the same thing. You go to their channel and every single video is them slagging off another content creator. Well, why are they doing that? It's probably not because they genuinely believe all those content creators are bad. They're doing it as a commercial strategy because people love drama. People click on, it's like, oh, drama. Oh, there's going to be some hoes thrown out the studio. I'm going to click on that. Oh, this guy's going to slag off, XYZ creator. I'm going to click on that. They know that. So they're creating drama in order to try and create spectacle to draw attention to them. So I suspect that that's probably what he had in mind. So it wasn't. But I mean, you're saying maybe underlying that was actually just pure emotion, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolute pure emotion. Because last time I checked, the attendance of said convention wasn't that great.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not. So I mean, the strategy is completely backfired. But I'm just saying, probably maybe his point of view was like, oh, I'm doing this because I'm this super Robert Greene,
Yeah, and
mastermind
it
person.
totally backfired because the
Yeah,
actual premise of that is never seem petty and never seem emotionless. Because Stoicism is a big part of this book as well. Like he
right.
mentions in the intro, don't let your emotions guide you. But what is it that makes you want to retaliate, quote unquote, retaliate against somebody online?
Mm,
Like, why would you feel the need to defend yourself against somebody you don't even know? And that's where that infamous post about your emotions are bad and you should feel bad for having them is that your ego gets involved. And the sooner you get your ego out of it, the better you can make decisions,
exactly.
because it's not about defending yourself towards anybody unless it's like real case of I need defending because of blasphemy or whatever. Not blasphemy, the other one. Or was it blasphemy? I can't remember. But in general, it comes across as very petty,
Right.
which has the opposite effect of what you actually wanted. Because
Mm,
this is a law of power as well, which is disdain what you cannot have. Ignoring them is the best revenge. Where it's like if somebody comes after you and you address them, you give them a platform. Because
yes.
apparently there is something in what they say that needs addressing. However,
Mm.
if you just let it be and be like, oh, I really don't need to address this, then you take the meaning of their slander away from them.
Yeah, because if you address it, then it gives it a degree of authenticity, doesn't it? Because as you say,
Mhm.
why would you need to address it if it was completely? And I mean, Rich Cooper is actually very good at this, isn't he? He doesn't respond. I can't think of a time he's responded to haters. Maybe he has, but I don't think he has. And that's something I think he does very well because they're beneath contempt for him. They're not even in his realm of consideration. They're not even in his universe. So it
Mhm.
doesn't matter if somebody makes 300 videos about him, saying, whatever. Um, he just completely ignores it and does his own thing. And I think that is a good strategy. I mean, I don't watch. We've talked about this offline, haven't we? But if I get hater
Mm.
content made about me, which I do from time to time, I never watch it. I never. It's just it doesn't touch me because it's not part of my reality. Do you know what I mean? Like I bet I don't really watch other dating coaches, let alone you know hater content. So if you've just got to operate completely in your own universe, I think, and everything else happens outside of it, and you're not even really aware of it.
Yeah, it's something. Who was it? I think it was Wine More Please who used to say this. He described frame as everything outside of your frame is either amusing, irrelevant, or interesting.
Yes, that's a good one. That's a good
And
one.
with guys like Rich Cooper, like those guys have like an iron frame where it's like, yeah, no, I'm not going to deal with this. I'm going to go on my merry life and drive my McLaren and run my
Well,
multi-million-dollar business. Where it's like, bye,
well,
post and ghost.
exactly. I mean, and also, I mean, look, Rich Cooper's got what 500,000 subscribers or something like that. I mean, he is,
Something.
he's far beyond any of these buffoons. Is it 500,000 or is it even more than that? It's a
I
lot
don't
anyway.
know.
He's got a lot of
It's
subscribers. He's got a big thing going on. He's got huge presence online and successful business and everything else. So they are outside his reality, really. And if some idiot with 300 subscribers on his channel is making videos about him every day, who really cares, right? He is
Mhm.
genuinely beyond them. But anybody can act in the same way, you know. And we're using this content creation thing as, I suppose, as an example. But if you're a content creator and you've got 300 subscribers, and then somebody starts slating you, you can still act in the same way as Rich Cooper. It doesn't matter, you still exist only in your own universe. And I suppose that is the basis of frame, isn't it?
It is actually, and the beauty of that, because this is the great thing about this book, is that he has like a law for the transgression, but also like the following of the law, because he has also stir up water to catch fish, where it's like you tend to draw people out of their frame. You want to get them emotional, like we
Mm,
just mentioned, because if they acknowledge you, they admit there's importance to you. And
yeah.
that's where the whole like clickbait content comes from, where it's like if you can get the person who that content is about, Rolo, when they acknowledge you, people will try to find you as well. Even Ryan has had this, where they made videos about him, and then all of a sudden he got a boost in subscribers because people were interested in him. Where it's like, oh, we heard negative things about you, so we went to check it out ourselves, but you're actually quite cool.
Well, yeah, I mean, no, you're right. And I mean, I've had the same thing, because I've had people make videos about me, and then people come, they say, oh, I saw these videos this guy made, and then I came to check out your channel, and I've realized actually you're a decent bloke, and I actually prefer you to the original person who made the, so it can benefit you. I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, I suppose there's two ways of looking at this, like there is anything else, really, because yes, actually, again, controversy draws attention, and attention, particularly online, is the currency of the realm, right?
Hip hop is a great example.
So Pearl from the Just Pearly Things channel, who, gentlemen, I'm actually going to be on the show later, so tune in for that one.
Oh, nice.
She's got 1 million subscribers now, right? And when she was, I was talking to her about, I mean, she's obviously played the game extremely well, and I was talking to her about, okay, so what are your tips? And I mean, the first thing she said is, well, do you have conflict in your titles, in your YouTube video titles? And I was like, well, not really, no, because I'm a mild-mannered,
British bloke with a fine education,
English gentleman. And of course, that's the problem. I mean, and you look at people like Fresh and Fit, you look at Pearl herself. I mean, all of these big channels. There's conflict and there's drama in every title. It's like, hose, crazy feminist slaps me around the face and then walks out the studio, police called, and blah, blah, blah. That's what makes people click. And, and also as well, the sort of the rage bait stuff as well. Look at modern women, blah, blah, blah. Now, I don't do a lot of that stuff, largely by design, because I have my own idea of what I want to do. And obviously that costs me in terms of subscribers. I mean, I'm sure we could all be getting a lot, if we did certain things and draw attention to ourselves more, we could all be getting more exposure. And obviously there's part of that is a decision that each person has to make about what they want to do, what they're prepared to do and what they're not prepared to do. And that's a separate topic. But where was I going with this? So there's two ways of looking at it, because yes, on the one hand, I agree, actually being stoical about these situations and not getting involved is a good thing to do. But equally, another way of looking at it is that, the more drama you create around you, the more attention you draw, and then that attention can be monetized or used for your benefit.
Ryan is a good example of this.
Yes.
Ryan, God damn it. Always the Canadian. But he uses create spectacle, where he just makes a snide little remark. He doesn't go overboard with it, but just enough to poke that bear. And then he gets the response he wants. And then he completely ignores the response and uses it in his advantage.
Yes.
Where we all have seen the Ryan Stone's not even a real man because he doesn't pass the 6-foot test, which is now an infomercial on Ryan's own channel.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, and that is quite a coup, because, that gentleman is one of the most famous men now on the planet. And having somebody even slating you, who's the most famous man on the planet, is obviously beneficial. And I mean, Ryan's been slagged off by some of the biggest names in the
Matt Walsh
in the whole space. I mean, we're talking like the sort of the glitterati of the right wing commentariat have slagged off Ryan Stone, and he's done very well out of it. Thank you very much. So. It's definitely a strategy, but I think we're veering into a different law here, aren't we? I mean, what law is that? Create spectacle.
It's create spectacle, and then it's a form of disdain what you cannot have, because that's a little thing as well with arguing online, and
yes.
It is truly one of my favorite laws, like that one, and
disdain what you cannot have.
Yeah, disdain what you cannot have, and law 22, where it's use the surrender strategy, because, and he mentions this in the introduction as well, what can you really gain in a conversation online? And you and I talked about this last week, having an online argument, what can you really win? What benefit does it really have in your life, other than, I can say that I'm right? Yeah, but okay, has it added to your life?
Yeah.
Has it been a financial benefit? Not really. You can just, well, gloat to your internet buddies, which he mentioned, and not literally that in the introduction as well, where it's like, never take things too personally, especially the person in front of you. The person in front of you probably doesn't even know you. They're
Yeah.
attacking your ideas, not the person, but they're using the person kind of as a scapegoat, sort of, to like bring their ideas to the forefront. And you're just cannon fodder in their marketing strategy, and that's all you are. It's just good business.
Yeah, exactly. Which is like the fat kid in Brazil strategy of just slagging everybody off indiscriminately. Really, I mean, just to anybody. I mean, it's amazing that Ryan Stone's dog hasn't had a a hit piece video done on him yet. I mean, it's just
with those ugly sweaters. Like,
yeah, I mean, because it's literally it's not really about the person. It's not really about the quality of their work or output or anything like that. It's just about how can I create spectacle to draw more attention to me, and it's a strategy. It's not a strategy I particularly want to do myself, but it is a strategy. You can understand why it's being employed.
Mm-hmm. And it is the acknowledgement of what people are capable of. Because a lot of people would read this book and be like, oh, this is terribly immoral, and Christ would never do that, and a good Christian would just leave this book where it is, because we are all moral human beings.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Machiavelli had the best quote, where it's like, people who are good will suffer under the people who are not so good. So it is better for you to acknowledge the fact, kind of an AWOL thing here, like all women are like that people could like screw you over for their own benefit and take nothing personal. Or you keep your blindfold on, say that every human being is internally good, and be screwed over by the people who are indeed not so good.
The other issue with this is that it depends how you define good as well, doesn't it? Because everybody thinks they're good. Everybody thinks they're on the right side of the argument. And we've only got to look at, say, it's an umbrella term, but the woke side of things, right? And how people who fall into that camp will use deplatforming and actually trying to get people fired from their jobs and so on, and ruining people's lives, getting people deplatformed and getting their payment processes cancelled, and whatever it is, all of these different things. Those people will be in themselves utterly convinced that they are on the side of good. And I mean, maybe they are. I mean, who's drawing the line here, right? I mean, it's very hard to say, but people who abuse or who use power in order to destroy others will always think I'm the one who's in the right here. And so this idea of good versus bad it's very subjective, isn't it?
It is, because everybody in their own mind is the good guy. Everybody in their own mind is the good guy, and they've got it by the right end. And if everybody would just live the way they live, the world will be a better place. Unfortunately, that is not the case, but that is how people tend to act.
Yes. Online argument. This is something that is new for humanity. Remember, we used to just have to listen to news and complain, talk with our friends. Interacting, this is a good thing, even in chats. No, he's right. I mean, it is a very new thing. I remember when it first started to come in, actually. I was writing some online articles and things, and they would open up suddenly you had these comment sections and people disagreeing with what you said. And I mean, it used to be the case that the writer or the journalist or whatever, you'd write the article, okay, that's it, and maybe somebody would write a letter into the newspaper or whatever. But now you've got this thing, and I think, is it good or? I mean, I guess it is good because it's democratized expression in a way that we perhaps didn't have before. And obviously, if you don't have democratized expression, then you're in a very dangerous situation, because that's how dictators and oppressive states operate, by shutting down debate. But at the same time, on the downside, what it means is that every fool and his mother with an internet connection can now go online and express their view on things. So I don't know. Where do you stand on that, Jack? Do you think it's good or bad? Or
opinion pieces have always been there. And everybody was always able to write into the newspaper and express said opinion.
Yes.
Is it good or bad? I don't know, because again, this is very subjective. This is my experience of the world. I mean, every now and then I look online and I get a bit annoyed because, like, in the fitness space and the dietary space, people claim certain things where my humble opinion, it's absolute garbage because my experience is way different than theirs. But maybe in their experience, it is good. So who am I to say, like, your thing is absolute garbage because I read in this study says that X, Y, and Z. It's like, look, everybody in the studies, what it all comes down to is to basic human experience and what works for you. And when I was on Ali's show, Real Femme Sapien, she asked me, like, do you believe that human, like, relationships between men and women are still a good thing? I'm like, absolutely. I hope I've never given the impression that I don't. But just because I don't have a relationship or have a certain conviction doesn't mean I think that everybody should do what I do, because that's not how that works, because everybody's experience in life differs from each other. So there is not a one way for all. But that's kind of what we're getting now with online discourse, where it's like, well, my way is the best way, and if you don't do what I do, then you suck. It's like, well, that's not really how it works, unfortunately.
No. Well, I mean, people are free to express that, but it's whether you choose to buy into that or not. And this is what, there's a lot of shaming online, isn't there? This is the other thing. I mean, if you look at the trads on Twitter, which obviously Ryan lampoons a lot now, the trads are often will use shaming tactics against other people to try to push their own particular worldview. Now, the trads will undoubtedly 100% convinced that they are absolutely right and everyone else is degenerate and evil, you know. But I mean, I've had this. I mean, I get it less now because my tweets are less provocative at the moment. But when I was doing a lot of tweets about, the player lifestyle and, you know, don't get married and all that kind of stuff, I would get trads coming at me in droves, shaming me, you know, oh, look at this Peter Pan, this old man, you know, like, oh, you're just, you know, but he's not really happy, you can tell, and all this kind of thing. It's all of this use of shaming to try to manipulate me or people who agreed with me into following what they believe. But is what they believe objectively the right thing? Well, no, because how can that be right for everybody?
Yeah, I mean, like, they proclaim marriage is the best choice ever. Meanwhile, the amount of sexless marriages is skyrocketing. But it's like, I don't know.
And this goes back actually to the book, doesn't it? To the introduction, because in the introduction he says the use of power. You know, we might have this idea the use of power. Oh, it's just these dictators or these evil kind of tech billionaires or whatever who've got all this power and they're wielding it and they're trying to control us. But actually, often the people who claim to be not using Machiavellian strategies can sometimes be the worst and the worst excesses of power. And I keep thinking about, for some reason, I keep thinking about Meghan Markle, but people who, and I don't allege that this is anything to do with Meghan Markle, but people who have a very outwardly sort of egalitarian, you know, view of the world, who are quite woke, who just want everybody to be treated equally and all those things. I mean, all of those sound like very laudable things outwardly, but the expression of that can sometimes seem to me to be quite totalitarian. You know, and if you don't agree with me, then you're wrong and you deserve to be cancelled.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, because they tend to drive the attention away from what they are. I mean, Meghan Markle married into the most exclusive family in all of Britain. Yet here she is claiming,
if not the world.
Exactly. Well, yeah, actually, they are. I mean, in all honesty, the British royal family is like the most exclusive family in the world.
We've
Let's
got
be
the best
honest.
branding, I think. We've got the best branding. Did we talk about this last week? You know, there's the Swedish royal family.
Oh yeah, the British have a better marketing.
Yeah,
I mean, the Swedish aren't that big.
I mean, you know, like,
I mean, come on, who really cares about Sweden? Except for immigrants. Oh, we can't say that here. But they tend to drive away attention from what they really are, because they proclaim this whole egalitarian nonsense here and there. Meanwhile, private jets, huge homes, money beyond belief, yet here they are spouting egalitarianism. It's like,
Yeah.
You're not very egalitarian in your lifestyle, are you? Well, no, but I claim to be it. I claim to be it, and you peasants must be egalitarian as well.
Well,
Otherwise,
yeah, no, no, you're right, exactly. I just have a sense, and I'm not directing this at any particular like individual or anything like that, but my overall sense is that some people are using sort of, the hashtag be kind, and
yes,
and sort of things like, I mean, there's the trans issue, there's climate change, there's so many of these different things. There's obviously gender. I mean, gender in terms of feminism and so on and so forth. And on the surface, the message is, let's just be kind to everybody. Let's just be really nice to everybody, and everybody should be equal. Let's all sing Kumbaya and everything. And all of that sounds really nice. But I think that there are people out there, and maybe I don't know if it's a majority or not, but there are people out there who are using their self-righteousness as a stick to beat others with. And it's just a
yes,
different form of totalitarianism, if that
it
makes
is.
sense.
No, it absolutely does make sense. Like, you need to succumb to my morals, otherwise you're not a good person.
Yes. And you
Uh,
deserve to be punished, and you deserve to be,
yeah,
basically erased from the surface of the earth.
well, kind of, that is where we're going. They use, and this is more like strategies of war than anything else, where they use the moral high ground, and everybody who doesn't think like them is not therefore moral and or good, because they try to be the arbiters of greatness and goodness and kindness, meanwhile excluding everybody else. This is where the hypocrisy in politics comes in, where it's like, we're the party of tolerance and acceptance. Oh, but we're not going to tolerate you because you
Yeah.
think others, you don't think like us. And then you're like, wait a minute, that's very intolerant of a tolerant party, is it? Yeah, but you have to draw the line somewhere. It's like, and people just ignore that that hypocrisy
Yeah.
because they're on the right side. It all has become tribalism.
Yeah, and I think human beings, whichever side of any particular issue they happen to be on, have the same impulses, which is to dominate others. And so the people who are on the good side of the issue are trying to dominate and trying to, be the to have the power. To come back to Greene, they want the power. And the people who are on the other side of the argument want the power as well. Is one better than the other? Well, obviously both sides are going to think their side is right. Objectively, how true is that? Then we get into phenomenal. What's the word? Phenomenology or whatever. The existence of truth in itself. And that's a whole philosophical debate that we probably can't get into now in the next 10 minutes that we've got for this show. But basically, everybody wants power, don't they? Really, that's what it comes down to. Everybody wants to rule the world.
That's a great song, by the way.
It is. It is. But I mean, obviously, we've been going a little bit sort of esoteric with all of this. What about practical takeouts from this stuff? I guess if you work in a gym, don't tell the bloke who's your boss that.
Oh yeah,
doing
I have.
Crunch is going to make you lose belly fat.
I mean, yeah, the one thing that you really need to look out for is that people are way more petty than you would think, especially when they're in a higher position. I've even had this with part-time jobs where I agreed on something with a coworker. We just agreed on something that I would take X shift and whatever. But the manager was not involved in that agreement. And because he was not involved in that agreement, he took that to heart and he felt undermined. I'm not kidding. Those were the words he used. He felt undermined because we did not went to him, but because we discussed that amongst each other. And that's how petty people can actually be. I mean, Cappy's got a whole bunch of content on boomer bosses, but realize how much ego people really have involved in small little things. And the practical advice on that is that your ego must take a sidestep to theirs if you want to get anywhere. Because what is the actual thing you take home at the end of the day? If you know that like a CEO or a manager can be as petty, do you really want to be right towards somebody like that? Or can you detach yourself emotionally from it and look at it objectively and say to yourself, okay, this person for some reason just wants to be right. They want to feel acknowledged. And the only thing I have to do now to be left alone is give them what they want. It's no loss of mine. There's no financial loss. There's no emotional loss, psychological loss. The only thing there is maybe a bit of an ego loss where the only thing you have to do is, you know what? You're right. You're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. But there's an issue with this, isn't there? Because the fly in the ointment is that, and he talks about this in the introduction, actually, you can't seem to be too much kissing somebody's ass.
Yes, and that is the trick, that let them come to you. Let them come to you with these things. Because like ass kissery won't get you anywhere. Maybe in the beginning a bit where it's like, oh, he's so flattering and things like that. But that will bite you in the ass towards other co-workers.
It's really difficult. I don't know what it's like in the Netherlands. I mean, in the UK, it's quite tricky, actually, because on the one hand, people like to be flattered, people want to be right and all of the things that you're saying. But on the other hand, we're quite cynical. The culture is quite cynical. And so if somebody is being very obviously sucking up to the boss, for example, that's going to become apparent. And the boss is probably not going to react that well to that either, because so how do you, and it's like this actually with girls as well, isn't it? If you are, you remember one of the early things with dating advice, with game advice was, guys naturally think, oh, I'll tell it, oh, you're so beautiful, babe, you're so sexy, you're so gorgeous. And the first game advice was like, well, no, tone that down, because she's used to guys kissing her ass and she's going to find it repellent, if you're too much like that. So you've got to find that balance between the two things, haven't you? On the one hand, yes, people like flattery, but on the other hand, if you overdo it, that it's going to put them off. So how do you bridge that divide? I've left you with a difficult question. I'm going to go now. You can answer that.
Oh, okay.
I'm only joking.
No, but you're not wrong. It is most.
You've got to balance it, haven't you?
It's social calibration. It really is social calibration, where it's like, it's okay to give somebody a compliment. You don't neg your boss. Like, no, don't do that. Like with girls too, it's okay to acknowledge she's beautiful, but what else? But like, what else? And with your boss and things like that, it's okay to every now and then just mention like, hey, I really like what you've done with the place, like the office culture. I feel appreciated
really
here.
What you've done with your hair.
Yeah.
Hey, I really like your butt.
Hello, HR. How are you? Like, maybe the guy's got a good watch. I don't know. But don't make it, don't, how do you phrase that? We are dealing with the internet. Like, actual ass kissing will be, like, people will notice that. But how do you act with your friends? How do you act with your friends when they've got something that you like? There's nothing wrong with acknowledging that, but there's more than just acknowledging things. Kind of thing.
Yes. It's a tricky one. I guess it's also cultural as well. Maybe it varies from culture to culture. In Britain, there is, and probably America as well, actually, there is a tradition of guys bantering with each other and teasing each other and joking with each other in a way, sometimes even insulting each other, but it's in a fun, friendly way. Or the underlying thing is meant to be fun and friendly anyway. So, yeah, it's like, okay. And actually, guys are encouraged to do that with women as well. Tease her, be challenging, create a little bit of friction. So it's a very delicate, nuanced thing. And it is going to depend to some extent on your culture. But the underlying point about this is, and actually, Robert Greene talks about the iron fist in the velvet glove. You're using a strategy basically of ingratiating yourself with this person, but you don't want to make it seem too obvious. You've got to conceal your intentions a little bit with this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Like you just mentioned, don't make it too obvious, but don't go the opposite route either, where you don't have a basic human conversation with somebody. Like, let's say your boss wears a watch that you actually fancy, where it's like, oh, that's a nice looking watch, man, and blah blah blah, and then you just have a normal basic conversation. But the thing is, like with never outshining the master, don't show up at work and rubbing your competency in his face, where it's like, man, you're such a jackass. If I would have run this place, we would have made tons of profit. But no, you decided to do X, Y, and Z. It's like, no, you don't do that either.
Which is what people do when they get drunk and on the staff night out. They're like, hey, listen, if I was running this, here's what I'd do. And then the next day, they're like, oh, no, I can't believe it.
I've seen that happen, actually, where they had this like group chat with co-workers, and one got drunk and he just went off. He just went off how stupid the boss was and what a goddamn moron. And if he was in charge, he would know better. And guess what happened on Monday morning? It's like, hey, you want to come in?
All right, so don't outshine the master, but also don't just blatantly slag off the master when you're drunk either.
Oh no, absolutely not. Like I can remember a story from my dad, because he used to have his own like logistics company, and one of the truck drivers had Facebook, but the guy forgot that he had my father on Facebook as well. And my dad's a bit of like an early sleeper as well, but like in the middle of the night he wakes up and he just like whatever scrolls through Facebook, what boomers do, and he saw that one of those truck drivers got drunk in the middle of the night and started posting on Facebook. He forgot he had my father on Facebook, makes a screenshot. He's like, I'm gonna keep that. Called him in on Monday morning, printed it out. Care to explain?
Yeah. Well, I think the key message. Well, don't forget, if you've got somebody in power on your Facebook, that's the first thing. But I think the other thing is you've got to always be aware of the hierarchy, right? You've got to be aware of where you are in it, and you've got to act accordingly. Really, I mean, it's like, I guess it's an obvious point to make, but you've got to always be conscious of these power dynamics, because they are always operating in some form or another, aren't they?
Yes. No, absolutely. But like, do you have an example of ever, because you were in corporate, right?
Yeah, I was just trying to think. I mean, of what specifically? Of just outshining the master kind of a thing?
Well, yes, like indirectly outshining the master, and maybe having to be dealing with somebody like very insecure, even though you weren't directly outshining them. Just because of your competence, they took note of you and wanted to get rid of you.
No, I was never competent, so it was never a problem.
Oh, well, that's a good thing. Well, that's why we're online, I guess. Like, we just don't function in the normal world.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to think, really. I mean, there's certainly been times. I mean, I don't know really how to say it without sounding like a complete dick, but I mean, there's certainly been times when I felt that I've been better educated, for example, than some of the people that I've worked for. And that's not to the detriment of their ability in that job, but they're probably not sitting there doing breakdowns of Robert Greene or talking about Dickens or Shakespeare or whatever, right? I mean, they were not necessarily that sort of person. I felt that I had to tone down that side of myself in order to sort of ingratiate myself, because I sense that basically you don't want to come over as a dick who's more intelligent than your boss, right? And so I've certainly been aware of that in the past and had to tone that down. I probably will be able to think of some more specific examples, but you know, I think just overall it's about just knowing your place in the pecking order, right? And having to sort of, and I mean, I've had a problem with that throughout my life, because I have this kind of dual sense of authority, where on the one hand, if somebody's actually paying your wages and they can get you fired, then that puts some stress in that relationship, because you know that you've got to be in their good books, basically. But on the other hand, I've also always had this sense of innate superiority, where I kind of think that they're all idiots. And so having to sort of deal with those two things at the same time has been tricky for me, which is why actually I prefer to work for myself, because you don't have to deal with those dynamics then, right?
Yeah, no, that is one of the things I truly don't miss, where you have to work with egos. Like I mentioned in the beginning, it's not about competence anymore. It's about who likes you. And talking about this does make you look like a giant dick, where it's like, look at me. I knew it better, and that's why they fired me. But unfortunately, that is just the reality of what we live in these days, where you have to deal with egos. Apologies, the lighting is like peak professionalism. But the reality just is that you are dealing with personalities of all kinds. And that, yes, there are people who do feel insecure about certain things, or there are people who will feel better about themselves than you just because of their position. And whether you like it or not, in your life, you're going to run into it, whether you like it or not. So people can say, like, oh, look at these two dicks talking about how they were too competent for the workforce. Well, it's not necessarily that we were too competent. We were just dealing, in some cases, I've had great bosses as well, by the way, like very kind people.
Yeah.
But there were some as well where you're dealing with somebody with a crippling insecurity. And then it's just nice to know how to handle that, where it's just do your job enough, kind of the quiet quitting thing, where it's like you just do what you're being asked for and nothing more.
Or ultimately remove yourself from the situation, because picking your battles is important as well, isn't it? And the corporate world, for me personally, as an individual, I think is just a battle I was never really going to win for various reasons, for various different reasons. But I just think ultimately, and that's why ultimately I withdrew from it. It was just like, okay, I'm just not going to be on this playing field anymore. Some people, it suits them. It works well, and I'm not sure they enjoy it necessarily, but they get what they want out of it. Okay, fine. For me, it was just I was not going to be that person, and so ultimately I came away from it. What else was I was going to make a point then, which was I thought was really intelligent. I mean, there were definitely people in authority. I mean, I had some very good managers, very good bosses, and things like that. There were definitely also some people who were just complete idiots, who were obviously just there because they managed to coast along for periods of time. And again, this goes back to Robert Greene, because it ultimately, it doesn't really matter if that person's in power at the moment for whatever reason. It doesn't really matter how intelligent they are. It doesn't matter how competent they are. It doesn't matter how good their ideas are. And you can slate all of that stuff in your head, but they are the one in power. All that's important is the power.
Yep.
Okay. And if they've got it and you haven't, that's just the way it is, kid.
Practically, yeah. Let your ego at the door and just look at it for what it is. Like, this is the hierarchy, and you have to deal with it. And if you think that you're better than that, good luck, because you ain't. Because there are people in power, and they have connections, and they can get rid of you in a heartbeat if they want to. Like, not like literally get rid of you, but in a corporate sense. Don't worry, you won't end up at the bottom of a lake. It's not that bad.
Probably. Unless you work unless you work for the mafia.
Yeah, I mean, let's not go there.
Indeed. So look, we are just about on the hour. So I think it's been a good episode to kick off. We're going to be looking to be doing these on a weekly basis. So it's going to be interesting to sort of go through this book and discuss it with you and pick it apart and hopefully get some nuggets of practical advice out of it for the guys as well. Any final thoughts? And what are you up to this week?
Any final thoughts? Don't take everything in this book too literally, and use it more as a defensive strategy than an offensive strategy. Don't assume everybody has the best intentions for you, and remember that you're always dealing with egos. And knowing that, keep your ego out of it. Other than that, I don't have much going on. I have one spot left for coaching on my monthly accountability program, personalized training program, diet plan, weekly form checks, a private Discord, and a monthly consultation every last Saturday of the month. So, which is this tomorrow. Tomorrow is the February consultation. So if you want to get in, do it now. Otherwise, you're going to be included in the March consultation. And other than that, yeah, tomorrow morning, at least for us Europeans, Red Evening will be on with Rob, and that is Friday. That is Friday night for the American audience, and that's all that I've got going this week. Actually, how about you?
Well, videos going up every day. I am doing a live stream later with Ryan, actually, which I've yet to
Nice.
put up, but we are doing it, I think, at 6 p.m. UK time, which is 1 p.m. EST. So going to be talking to Ryan about Frame, probably a bit of a continuation of these themes, actually, but Frame and his new book. And then I'm going on this on Pearly Things later as well on her channel, so look out for that. And yeah, I may be doing some travel next week. We'll see. So lots to look forward to, guys. But yeah, just subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And yeah, get on my free email list as well. There's a link below.
Nice.
Very good. All right. See you guys again very soon. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Cheers.